Tech debt can cost you a massive amount of money, but a lot of people don't understand what it is. I've been running a software consulting company for 3 years, and I've basically helped a lot of clients deal with this. What tech debt means is you're using old stuff that is costing you a lot to maintain and upkeep. This does not mean necessarily that you're just using old systems, because sometimes old systems work, and that's okay. Tech debt is when you are basically paying down a debt because you built some kind of system that wasn't fully baked and wasn't fully ready to do what it does today. Sometimes you build something and you build a simpler version and things like that, and you just run with it because it works for now and that's all you need. But when you scale up, at some point in time, you need to scale up that software as well. And when people don't scale that, you build up debt because you're using that thing more than it should be used and kind of overusing it into a use case that it doesn't fit properly. And what happens is when you want to add new things into it, you're going to have to go a really long way to add a simple thing. So what I mean by this in practice is, for example, there's a platform that you have internally in your company and you want to build a new feature. Now this new feature is simple. Maybe it's adding like a little follow button on your users, whatever, it depends on the application that you have, etc., things like that, or the system, whatever it is. And so you want to do this additional thing. This applies to code applications, right? So custom applications, but I think this can apply to no code systems as well, where you're using applications that are honestly too simple for you. So for example, Salesforce exists as a CRM and it's incredibly complicated and very thorough in what it does. And then there's simpler CRMs. And there are use cases for both of those. But basically, when you try to build a simple feature or something that should be simple, that would take you relatively short amount of time if it was built on the right technology, but it's taking you way longer to do that because you're basically building it into a system that's too old to handle what you need. And so what then happens is you spend 10 hours or 20 hours more than you should be building a really, really simple addition. And that is called tech debt. And this can cost you a large amount of money without you realizing it. That's, I think, the main thing. It's not this debt that piles up very fast or things like that. It's more of a kind of silent killer. It's not the type of thing that is immediately an existential threat, but it is very much the type of thing that just sucks a lot of life out of, your business, essentially cash out of your business, because you're paying to maintain a system that should be replaced or should be rebuilt. And we've done a couple of projects of these and I've just observed it in other people and other clients essentially. And I think it's something that people sometimes don't pay enough attention to. And it's not that you have to hire us or anything, but go and make sure that you have either in-house capabilities or somebody who can advise you on when to look into that. Find your own advisor, find some developer who you know or something like that, but just make sure that you are not building simple things and taking really long to fix things and to, paying a bunch of people to maintain something that is too old and you're paying more than you need to maintain it. That's essentially it. I think that's the big thing. Good systems should be easier to maintain, but should be cheaper to maintain as well. So that's really fundamentally it. Tech debt causes you to overpay on maintenance and overpay on upgrades. It is a massive waste of money, essentially, especially, the bigger the scale that you have. And it means that things move slower and all these kinds of problems. And so when you're moving kind of from startup to scale up, a lot of companies hit this phase where they realize that they've accumulated a lot of technical debt and they need to pay that down and kind of rebuild things. And that is a normal thing in the company. It's not something that necessarily you want to avoid, because when you're at the start, I also don't think that it makes sense to build a really complicated MVP with all of the bells and whistles in the system itself. You want to build things well, but also you don't need to build the fanciest thing in the world. You do need to just go with something that works for the time being, but eventually you will grow out of that. You avoid tech debt by knowing when to step out of that shell and grow into the next one. Otherwise you kind of overgrow, and that can be ultimately a waste of money for you. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. I answer as many of those as possible, and I really hope that this was somewhat useful in helping you navigate these kinds of challenges about what happens when you're starting to grow out of a system that is not suitable for you anymore. Anyway, I've been recording every day for the past year, so also feel free to comment any video ideas or things that you want to ask, and I'll try to make a video about those too.